Hi, my name is Barbara Allen. I am author of the book Conquering Arthritis. For 2.5 years, I had arthritis so badly I needed an electric wheelchair to get around. But now I am fully recovered and I can do so many fun things that I used to not be able to do. One is ride my bicycle again. Another is I can shoot a 40-pound bow. So that means I've got a bowstring that's 40 pounds of pressure on my fingers. And when I had arthritis, sometimes it was hard to hold a pen or a pencil, or even just the weight of a spoon or a fork on my fingers hurt. So 40 pounds of pressure, yes! My name is Barbara Allen, and I am author of the book Conquering Arthritis, and I am delighted, totally delighted to have as my guest today Judy Hunley. She lives in Moody, Texas, and she has done something totally amazing, which is conquer her own rheumatoid arthritis. And I'd just like to start, Judy, with what you shared in your latest email to me about your normal blood work. Could you tell me a little bit about, you were saying you were in tears, you were of joy, you were so happy. So could you tell me a little bit about that?
Every time I go to my rheumatologist, it is with fear and trepidation, I guess would be the words. And I wait to see what the blood work is going to show. And I had had some really good time in here where I wasn't hurting. And so I was going to get my blood work, and then the next week, in 7 days, I would go get the results of it. And so I went in to see him. And he started talking to me and asking me things, and I said, okay, just hold it. Tell me what the numbers were on the inflammation. Tell me how bad it was, because I always expect the worst, There's a SED rate, and there's a C-reactive protein, and I've never seen a normal reading in about 8 to 10 years. And so I wanted to know. He said, well, it's normal. Well, I sat there and just started crying because I have worked so hard not to hurt, and just following what Barbara has written about, and just to see if I could get to the point where I didn't hurt. And in the back of my head was, it really isn't going to work for me. So I just kept going. I just kept pushing on the food, on all the things that she's recommended. You've recommended, Barbara, and I got a normal reading. So I am just thrilled about that.
Great. And tell me a little bit about, before you started the methods in my book, what a normal day was like and what it's like now.
Okay, there was a long period of time that I had RA, and varying degrees of it. But as I went on year after year, it began to get worse, and there was more pain, and I ended up, of course, to the point, like many other people, of having to go in and get shots because I couldn't stand the pain. I was running a school at the time, and so there were times when I really, really just hurt and had to just stop and go get something so that I could keep going. Then in there, about 2009, my husband got sick, and when he did, I left my school and started taking care of him. Well, needless to say, I was not taking care of me. I was just trying to take care of him, and we were fighting cancer. So I had a lot of pain and grief. I had a lot of increased responsibilities as well, because he had been taking care of our farm, our ranch, and working. And so I was picking up what he was doing, taking care of our ranch. The cattle, we've got longhorn cattle out here, so feeding them, looking for fences, walking fences. So I was getting exercise by all means, but it was not necessarily a good time for me. And so I've stayed very active through this because I as I found the book by Barbara and as I read about it, it was, staying very active was a big key to fighting this. So a normal day for me was never 8 hours. I don't believe I've ever had an 8-hour day of work or, like regular normal people. Instead, I had a lot more to do, and it extended until it got dark. And so it was always very busy. My greatest pain was hands and wrists. And so carrying that feed bucket to cows was sometimes very difficult. And I had to, just really work on it. But I found out if I went on and got out there and kept going and fed them and walked around and did the things, that there was some relief in it. Mm-hmm. So I did continue to be as active as I could possibly be.
Okay, great. And now what's it like? I know you still have the cows. Unfortunately, I know that David has passed, so you've got all that responsibility, not of keeping him alive, but still of running the ranch. What's that like for you now that you're better?
Well, it has actually been a very interesting adventure, I would call it. I have learned that I pretty much knew how to run a school, and I did what I consider to be a good job. And my teachers liked for me to be there, and the kids did, and so I kind of had that down. I knew what to do. But then there was this ranch and cows and a lot of fencing and a lot of brush and a lot of other things I didn't know about. So I ended up going to a program that was for women like me who had been farming and ranching less than 4 years. I certainly fit into that category, and I began to learn a lot. And it was like learning a foreign language. I had no idea, what to do with these animals and what they really needed. And, so it was a day-by-day process. And as long as David was here, he could tell me. And so, I was okay. But then I lost him. And so this women's group, who were also like me for various reasons, and several of them had lost their husbands, we learned together how to do a spreadsheet about baby calves. I know y'all are really interested in that, but leasing land and how much I should get according to the yield, and all kinds of interesting things that I had never before had any idea that went on with this ranch and this farm. So it was quite an interesting process in there, I would call it.
Wow. When everybody else is retiring, you're starting a whole new career.
Well, I had quite a few friends remarking about that. And that also was interesting because I am still working. I'm not working full time. I don't go every day, but I have a tremendously wonderful job where I get to go and coach principals in T-STEM schools, science, technology, engineering, and math schools. So I get to go and still see the kids and the teachers, and it pushes me to get going every day. And I really feel like that was a part of it also, because I did have friends who had this awful rheumatoid arthritis and who were not doing anything, and it seemed to get worse for them. And it was quite an impetus to keep going, to do things I loved. And so I'm still doing that and taking care of, cows and fences and enjoying that. There's nothing like a sunset out here in Longhorn cattle. So I love it all very much.
That's great. And I just want to emphasize to everyone that's listening to this interview that what Judy is doing is very smart, and most of the people that make amazing levels of healing like she does and has done really keep something in their life that really excites them and that they love to do. So kudos to you. because Judy is a high school principal, she's the most well-prepared person I have ever interviewed. Mostly I just tell people, you know, let's make an appointment and then we'll chat. And I'm the one with the outline. But Judy's got this amazing, wonderful outline of what she'd like to share with everyone out there about what it was like for her to heal from her rheumatoid arthritis. And so I'm just going to let her take it away because she's lived this, and one of the biggest things in her heart is she just knows how much it would have mattered to her to be talking to somebody like her when she was still going through this. So she's going to be like your best friend if you're anything like her, and she's just going to sit down and talk with you and tell you what really mattered to her and what she thinks you need to know if you're going through this process yourself.
I give a lot of credit to Barbara and her book. When I found the book and I found Barbara, I was very doubtful, very honestly, if it worked. And I was like, sure, it's going to make me quit hurting. And I kept reading it. I just kept reading it. And then Barbara's conferences, I would do conference calls with Barbara and ask a lot of questions. She can tell you that I was not an easy sell on all of this. I really was trying to figure out how to do that. The good news is that they have an ALCAT now, which means you can take a blood test and find out what food you're sensitive to. And when you can do that, you can just get off those foods for a while. The selling point is it's not forever. It's for a period of time. And that gives your gut a chance to heal. Well, you know, being so, let's say, hyperactive in some ways about all I do and such a believer in just trying to get better, I really didn't believe that there was anything wrong with me with the foods I was eating, but because I've always been a healthy eater. But when I got off the foods I was sensitive to, I began to feel a lot better and a lot different. And what happened next was that when I started talking to my rheumatologist about it, she really was not encouraging, is the best way that I can say that. She didn't say not to do it, or she didn't say don't worry about that, but she just did not encourage me. And so I had gone with her a long time. She'd been my doctor a long time. So the hardest thing I've ever done is to move to another rheumatologist. And I found a really good one. He said, I don't know anything about this, but let me tell you, I can learn. And he has learned with me and been very encouraging. So I would encourage you to keep going until you find somebody who will support you. I think that's very important. So then I had a rheumatologist. I had Barbara Allen. I had her book. I had my ALCAT, and I was going through trying very, very hard to do the things I needed to do. I went probably 6 months at the best I can figure, because that was the period of time I was trying to get to, and felt a lot better. So that, I mean by that, the food part, I didn't have any intestinal problems at all. I was feeling good. It just was a complete difference. However, I was still having some flares, and so that was really hard. When I talked with Barbara, she suggested I go back and get another ALCAT. I did. Well, the neat part of that was I got back many, many things I couldn't eat the first time. So that was a great treat. And I now have learned really about cooking from that ALCAT. What you do is you just cook and put the things in it you can have and just leave the other things out. And really and truly, you can have some really good recipes. So Barbara was very encouraging about that, because I really wanted specific things that I had eaten before. So that made it kind of hard. In addition, what I was doing, I found out about yoga, and I had gone to a physical therapist right after I lost David, and she explained to me what I'd done is some damage from lifting him. And so the short version of that is that she suggested after my physical therapy that I start yoga and get a lot of exercise in every day, but not give up my walking. And I wear a Fitbit. I'm making sure I try to get those 10,000 steps on a Fitbit every day. Plus now I'm doing yoga on a video. I just could not go in with a group of people yet and do yoga. I was having trouble just getting up and down, staying with the tape, all of those kind of things. So I just did it until now. I can stay with the tape. No, I cannot do all those wonderful bends that I know would help me, but I can do a lot more than I could. And so I cannot tell you how much better I feel because of the yoga. I really doubted that too. And now, recently, there's been a study about it supposedly helps with reducing inflammation. So there's something else that is helping as well. Every time that I would I would have something happen where I hurt and where I had to go get a shot, or in there where it really was giving me a lot of pain, I would go back to Barbara's book, or I would call her. And that is what took me another step and another step and another step. And there was always something I had missed because that wasn't what I was concentrating on, and that wasn't where I was at the time. So that really helped me tremendously. Then there were a lot of people who encouraged me along the way. And Barbara had even said that about, surround yourself with people who will encourage you to do the things you need to do. My primary doctor is one of those. She thinks it's wonderful that I've gotten the inflammation down. And when I sent her an email, what she said, you can't see us, but we're here dancing. So I had lots of people who were very, very encouraging about, how things were going. I think the main thing is that you don't really realize that there's anything wrong with you, that there's something about the food you eat that can get better until it starts getting better. And then it gets a lot better and you feel a lot better. And I think that is what's been so tremendous. In addition, I think it has been just the encouragement of having somebody who has really been before you, because it's, Barbara was 27 years old when this happened to her, and here I am almost 70, and it's not going to work for me. I was just sure it wasn't, but it did work, and I'm there. Now, can I maintain it? I don't know, but I sure am trying. I'm in Texas in the summertime. It's great. It feels wonderful. I don't mind feeding those cows in the heat because that heat feels good. But you know what? Those cold fronts are coming. So I am really going to try to do my best to stay on my diet and, do what I'm supposed to do. Exactly. So I think that's a big piece of it. Several things happened to me that I had forgotten about until I started writing down some things to do this with Barbara, to have this conversation. One of the things was I got a bunch of friends together, a carload of women, if you can imagine, and we're going to see a friend who has been ill. And so when we go to see this friend who has been ill, someone has baked a birthday cake for one of the other ladies, and we're going to have birthday cake. Well, I didn't want to be the one that couldn't have flour and couldn't have bread and so forth. So I ate a piece of that cake. And by the time we got home, now it was several hour drive, 2.5 hour drive. By the time I got home, even before in the car ride, my hands and my wrists were already hurting. So it was a really good reminder to me that if I'm going to eat a gigantic piece of flour, and it's flour for me, you know, that happens to be what's difficult for me, then that's what's going to happen. It was also very convincing to my rheumatologist as well. He said, by the time you got home, you were already hurting. I said, yes. I was just holding my hand and not telling anybody that I was hurting. So that night I stayed awake a long time. So some things like that have happened along the way that convinced me that it is the things I put in my body. And then to get so many of them back on the second ALCAT, I had only been able to eat bison, buffalo, and I've met a lady that raises buffalo now, I want you to know. Anyway, I could only eat that, and pork were the only meats that I could eat on the first round. So I was a little grumpy about that, but you know, I have now 1,006 ways to fix pork or buffalo. You want to know, I can help you with. So I think it's making the best of what you've got, but not ever giving up. Because if you give up, you know, it's going to be really hard for you. I think probably you figured out along the way that my faith is a big piece of all this, and something that I have shared with Barbara. So there have been a lot of prayers along the way, and a lot of talking to God about the situation I'm in, and you know, trying to have the strength to do the things that I need to do. So I think that has kept me going also, to get me to do another day, and to get me to exercise, and to get me up and take this silly dog of mine out on a run, and you know, just anything that keeps me going every day. And I think that makes a huge difference.
I totally agree with you. The people that heal the most deeply are the ones that are willing to work on many different levels. So you've heard Judy talk about her diet, so that's physical, and exercise, so that's also physical. But then she's reaching out in an emotional way, where she's doing things that are exciting to her, that she really loves doing, and she's got a strong faith. And it sounds like one of the things about faith is, if you're just always praying what you want, but you're not listening back, that's not so great. But if you've got the kind of relationship with God where you're both talking and listening, that's usually the deepest healing. Because if you don't ever let any room for God, however, I don't know what religion you may or may not be, or even if you're an atheist, but if you're not letting good things come into your life, then that's hard too. And usually people of faith, they're actually willing, once they've prayed, to let those things in. So
right,
the more different ways that you can allow healing into your life, so the spiritual, the faith is one, the having companionship and doing things you love, that emotional part is really important. The physical part is mandatory, but sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes we need this other stuff in addition.
Right, exactly. And I do think part of it, when people support you and pray for you, and there are some that you can actually tell them what you're doing. Being in a medical community, I'm surrounded by a lot of close friends who are doctors, and some will support you, and some look at you and nod a lot. So you just keep going. But they have all commented on that I'm getting better, and that I'm walking better, and that I'm feeling better, and they can tell it, obviously. So I'm bringing some folks along that who would probably not have come along with me before. So I think that's a big part of it too. Then when you also, you know, your faith is a big piece of it. It's really important what Barbara said. And you know, sometimes when you're just saying all the time what you want to God, but if you can just stop, walk where it is peaceful, where it is calm, where it is quiet, and listen to what you hear, you're going to find out so many things that are good for you that you need to do. They're going to come into your mind. It does work, and it is part of the faith that has kept me going. And I'm just grateful for that. I have a wonderful Sunday school class that who has just, took care of me and my husband through all of the hurt and through all the times. And I cried a lot of tears to them, and they held me up, and they still do to this day. But I think that is such an important part of you, is to have that faith so that you can keep yourself going with knowing somebody is right there with you. You're not alone. And I think that's a big piece of my strength.
Well, that's really beautiful, and I totally agree with you. And the one other thing I would say is that being in a community like you are, where you're willing to be honest about what's going on with you, and like being willing to let other people know that you hurt, or that, just even to let somebody else be there when you're crying. Those human connections are really, really important. And one gift that a lot of people don't realize that they're giving when they have something like rheumatoid arthritis is, as you learn to be with your own pain in a really honest and open way. I'm not talking about a pity story. I'm just talking about being real and not hiding it. One of the deepest healing things that happens to the people around you is they understand that you can be there for them when they're in pain too. And instead of everybody being shut off, there's just a whole lot of healing that happens, not because you're changing anything on the outside, but because you're changing stuff on the inside for you and those people. Like just being able to be there and have somebody be there for you can be tremendously healing and life-changing.
Exactly. No, I agree. One of the things that happened along the way with several people was I ended up having a relationship with somebody who was way ahead of me on the rheumatoid arthritis. They were also what Barbara had described about when she was young, and several of them were having trouble walking, could not walk very well. Several of them already, hands and feet were, turning, and they were unable to use them like they had done previously. And I believe that there was a reason that I found those people. And I believe that helped me to fight harder, to not be that way and to not go there. But I knew from seeing them, if I didn't keep going and I didn't keep exercising and I didn't find lots of things that I love to do, and of course, when you've got grandkids, you have to keep moving. So those were the things that encouraged me. This summer when I was at the beach, I was with my youngest, Emily, and we were in the dark with our flashlights looking for sand crabs. And so here we were, and I'm trying to keep up with this 2-year-old tugging me. And Emily looks at me and says, Graham, run, you got to run. And I looked at Emily in the dark, and I said, Graham is running. This is her run, Emily. And so we started both laughing, the 2-year-old and I. But we caught that sand crab, let me tell you. We cut it off. So, and we certainly have a catch and release policy in our family. So we get them all in the bucket, and then end of the night, we let them go, and we all squeal because they run over our toes. So fun, really important part of all this is to enjoy that and enjoy the grandkids. And they have been so supportive. My family has been so supportive as I've gone along with this. In fact, my son is the one who found Barbara's book and sent it to me. He reads just constantly, and of course that came from researching for David, trying to find cures and trying to find ways to keep him going. And he found the book, and so I give him credit for getting me going along the way. He's been most amazed of all, so it's been good.
Yes. Were there any other
I
types of
think,
supports from your family that, as you think back about it, were particularly useful for you in this healing process? Maybe got you through a rough patch?
right. They have, if anything, they overdo. Is that the way I can say it?
Yeah.
Like if they knew I was on the ALCAT and I couldn't eat certain things, well, when I got to their house or they came here, you know what they brought? They brought the things that I could eat instead of letting me just not eat the things that, you know, I wasn't on. And so here they were making recipes and everything to keep me going so I wouldn't hurt. And I just loved them for it because they were trying so hard. And to this day, you know, when we're going to do something, okay, now what can you eat now? What can't you eat? You know, they're asking. So having that family support is just, oh, they are precious indeed. They are just so very helpful. So I am grateful for that.
That's fantastic. Is there anything else that they did that was particularly useful?
Right. There were a lot of things, but I think the main thing is that my oldest son was my researcher. The second one does the same thing, but, you know, looking for things on the internet because they're both in internet businesses. But my oldest one would find things about inflammation and what causes it and send it to me. And so I would pick through the food that I could have at that time that reduced inflammation, and I would try to, you know, incorporate them into what I was eating for the week. And that was very encouraging too, because to have somebody else that's in it with you and keeping you going really made a huge difference. And then they all were, you know, looking up things, finding things. Anytime they read something that was, you know, in their email, they were sending it to me. And they really were very impressed by Barbara's book, most of all, especially after Lars found it and that I actually read it and did it. You know, their mother doesn't always do what she's supposed to do. So they were pretty amazed by that. Are you really doing that, Mom? You know, and yes, I really am. I want to quit hurting. Anyway, so they were very encouraging. And we, as you can tell, we've been through a lot together. And David was just, you know, the center of our life. And so, you know, he was the beginning of all that. But we have kept that from him and kept us all together on the things we do and supporting each other.
That's so lovely. Well, I'm really curious, given that you're a very independent thinker, and you easily could have decided that the book was not something for you, or maybe not even something that was real. I mean, for me, it's real. But what was it when you were looking at the book that made you say, okay, I'm actually going to risk trying this? Sometimes hoping is a big risk.
Right. I think I'm not going to be what you expect me to say. I think it's going to be something very different. But I had tried a lot of things. I was on the third medicine, and nothing was really working. I continued to hurt every time there was a cold front. So it wasn't like I had someplace else to go. This was the first thing that I found that was real, that, you know, really might work for me, because I had read everything. I had tried to, you know, incorporate food that stopped the inflammation. I'd done everything that I read about, you know, just about trying to figure it out. But for some reason, when I got the book, it made sense that if I could just heal, you know, everything on the inside, that, you know, that might help. That might really stop some of this. And so there was somebody who had done it before, And I stayed very closely in touch with Barbara. You can ask her.
That's true.
Did you really quit hurting? I'm asking her all of these things. When this last time on this blood work, and I really didn't hurt. And, the doctor's looking at my wrist again, and we're both looking at that, that score on the blood work. It really makes you realize that it is possible, that it is something that will take the pain away. And that's what it's all about. I had been off for more than 6 months off every painkiller there is, because I'd been living on everything before that just to quit hurting. But they were not working. I might could finally sleep a little bit sometimes when I had the inflammation, but they weren't working anyway. And so I just got off all of them and went more than 6 months off of all the pain killers and, all the things that you take trying to relieve some of the pain. And I think that was the biggest thing about the book is, she had gotten off, Barbara has gotten off all these painkillers and she feels better and she's doing things and she's up and moving. And so I thought, well, okay, I know she's young, but I've got to at least, go the gamut on this and see if it works. And I think that's a big piece of it is, there's not like 2 or 3 choices out there. Even people who take the medicine still hurt. And that's the thing. The one thing that I want you to hear, because there are good doctors out there, my rheumatologist last time when I came in there said, without me asking him, he said, okay, we're going to go into the cold fronts. We're going to see how you do. And we're going to watch this. But he said, if you make it through these cold fronts and the pain is not there like it was before, we're going to half your medicine first. And then if you go a little bit farther and you're still doing all right, I'm going to take you off this medicine. Well, I was dancing. I just want to be off the medicine. And so that was, for a doctor to offer that, usually they offer more medicine. So instead, he is really working to try to get to where I want to be. And I just love and appreciate him for it.
Yay. I've got my fingers crossed. You're going to have to let me know what happens the first few cold fronts coming through.
Right. Oh, you'll hear, I'll send those emails. But it's got to be better than it has been. So if it's even less, it's because I have taken in something that I don't know that I've taken in, because that's probably been one of the hardest things is you go out to eat and you're guessing what may be in there. But there's so many things that I got back on the ALCAT that I can eat so much more and not affect it. So, I'm not going to push it. I'm going to try to stay, in the lines on all of this and see if I can go through this winter. So I'm hoping.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how you do this fall. Of course, it would be fantastic if without having to tweak anything, you're able to come off your medicine and you continue to feel great. But if it's not quite all the way able to get off, just give me another call and we'll see what it is that's the next tweak, because I'm pretty sure you can get all the way. All the way off without the pain. I mean, you're doing so well.
Right. I think it's better than where I've been. So, I never expected to see that inflammation marker down. So that was such a shock that, the doctor, it was so cute. I wish, Barbara, you could have seen him, though. He was just so cute. He said, I told you I was a good doctor. And just, he, of course, he was trying to get me to not cry. So anyway.
That's sweet.
But I was just so amazed that, yeah, good people will carry you. They really will.
Yeah, that sounds like you've done a really good job surrounding yourself with good people and showing up and being a really good advocate for yourself as well. I'm so proud of you and so happy. I mean, I was crying and just so happy when I got that email from you too. It's like every time somebody gets better, it's almost like I just got better all over again. It's like, yeah.
Right. Truly, I've been handing it, the book to other people saying, you don't have to hurt like this. You don't, try this, read it, see if you can just start on it. And some other people have benefited from it. Now, I don't think they've come that far yet, but they have gotten at least an idea of trying to find out what they're sensitive to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the secret of it, is finding out what's causing it.
I think you're right. Is there anything else that you would like the folks out there that are still in this process of healing to know?
Well, I think the main thing is when you get a flare or something happens to you that you really hurt and you've been up all night, you have to go back and get a shot or whatever it is you do to keep going, that you tend to want to give up. And I think the important part is not to give up, but to go back and look at what you ate before, what was around you. And I think keeping that food diary really did help. And I wasn't exact about it, but I would, the main idea was going to be there every time of what I had tried. And if anything was a mixture, that I'd eaten out or something, it was pretty suspect. So I really do think, looking at what you're eating and trying is really important, and just not giving up and not hurting. Because it is possible to get there. I mean, you're looking at Barbara, so she's the one that gave me that hope. So I am grateful for it.
That's great. I know that one thing that you were thinking might really help people is more help with the food. And I know you had some ideas that you wanted to share to help make it easier for people to heal. I was wondering if you might be able to tell me that right now.
Sometimes when you start and there are things you can't eat, you just don't eat as much. And I did drop a lot of weight, which for the joints is not so bad, but I wasn't getting the nutrition that I wanted and I needed also. So you've got to find the balance on it. And the balance involves really looking at what you're eating and what's possible and begin to just learn to cook without those recipes you've had before. So I learned to do a lot of things like that slow cooker and putting several kinds of vegetables in there together and, just letting them saute through the day until I came home again. And then I learned there are several, of course, I'm in the Southwest and taco soup is everywhere. And so I have several good recipes for beans, multiple kinds of beans and a broth of some kind. And so I just kept working until I could find a vegetable broth that I liked as well as the chicken broth that I love. So, and I still can't have chicken, but I'm using now turkey because I got turkey back. So everything like that, you just adjust. You just start trying it different ways. I can tell you I probably threw out more food than a lot of people, but I do know that when I fixed stuff that I didn't like a lot, my dog loved it. So she did. She was a great participant in all of this too. But that made it better. Yes, she was. Very, very important. But if you just take a recipe that you love and you go through and you put things in it, and then say, like in that taco soup, the first round, I could not have the canned tomatoes or the fresh tomatoes. And so I just left them out. So it had the onions, all the kinds of beans, it had the broth, it had all of these other things in there, and it was good. It was really good. And as many chopped vegetables as I could get in it, that were fresh. Mm-hmm. And that one kind of would get me back on the track when I was feeling sorry for me that I couldn't eat everything, because it tasted good. So that I worked at that quite a bit. Now, when I fix things, I try to just look at it as a recipe and then put in lots of different things that I can have. Maybe I can't have these things, so I would put other things in, other vegetables. But I constantly go to vegetable markets. I've got a friend who has a huge vegetable garden, and so I go and see her, and she gives me lots of vegetables, and whatever she's got that's fresh, that's going to be the one for the day.
That's great.
So that keeps you wanting to cook, is finding fresh vegetables and fresh things. Mm-hmm. I have a sweet lady down the road that has chicken, so I have lots of eggs, because now I have eggs back in. Mm-hmm. So I have lots of, recipes with just, eggs and lots of vegetables cut up in them, like an omelet, but without the cheese. And they're good. And I learned a lot from my ladies group that are all farmers, because they eat whatever comes out of their gardens. They do not eat any of the things with the additives or any of the, things that have the poisons from it. They cook from their gardens and from things that are very fresh. So that has been a great lesson for me to learn from. And they're young, and they're just cooking all kinds of things. So it's fun to watch them and learn from them.
Yeah, that's great. And there's another example of how, like, just being in community and with people that you love and that can teach you things, it helps keep you young, and it helps you heal because they can teach you things you need to know that maybe you didn't know before. And I bet they're getting a kick out of you too. So.
Right. Well, and we would all bring things, and so, of course, we were busting it to try to bring the thing that everybody loved. And so mine was a little unorthodox, but they, then I saw that theirs were pretty unorthodox too. So we fit together quite well. It was a good thing.
Kindred souls.
For sure.
Good. Is there anything else that you'd like to share that you think would be helpful?
The only thing that I would encourage is just, no matter what, if you hit a downer, if you hurt, if, whatever it is, get up and go someplace, do something, force yourself to pick up something and read it, research on Google everything that you are having trouble with. I am the Google queen at this point. And, find something to try the next day. Something, again, if it's food or if it's just feeling better. I think moving, my rheumatologist was so impressed that I could do those stands where you stand on your feet and your toes, and just, he thinks that helps inflammation to get out of those joints, because you're, pushing down with wrist and with toes, and, that's strengthening them, but it's also forcing you to move those joints. So I do think the yoga has been a good part for me. And I, did a lot of sports. I have a major in physical education, but I never did yoga before. So everybody can learn. Everybody can try things. It's good for you.
I really want to point out something very smart that Judy just said, which is when you're feeling down, if you can find just one thing, even if it's really small, that you can do to make your life better, and you don't even have to know whether it's going to work or not. You just get to try it. That really takes a lot of the pressure off. But I remember back when I was having trouble even like walking from my bedroom to the bathroom, and I was in a tiny apartment. And you know, the big deal was if I walked that far, I would usually pass out. So I had a little rolly chair. But I had figured out the one thing, that if I couldn't do anything else that day, I was going to floss my teeth. And why I picked that, I don't even know. But because it was really hard, my hands hurt really badly. But if I got nothing else done the whole day, I was convinced that as long as I flossed my teeth, it was going to be it was going to prove to me that I wasn't too depressed to keep living. Because I think I'd read somewhere the list of what the list of symptoms are for being in chronic deep pain and what depression were. And the only difference really was that you still had a little bit of willpower when you were in chronic pain. You were still willing, when you had the energy, to do something to make yourself better. When you're in deep depression, like clinical depression, you don't have that will anymore. And so I was convinced that I was never going to go into deep depression. But every time I flossed my teeth, I got such a kick out of it, even if I was exhausted. I mean, it's a crazy thing. But I learned later that probably I had some good intuition, because the better you keep your gums, like if you've got gingivitis, it will make rheumatoid arthritis worse. But if you keep your gums in good shape, it will lower the level of inflammation in your whole body. But I had no idea that that was true. I just decided that the one thing I was going to do was have clean teeth, no matter how bad I hurt. Not all the time, but at least once a day.
Exactly. And I think that's what's important for somebody to hear, that you've been through it and there was a way out. You know, it was so bad that you were barely able to walk, but there was a way out. And that's what keeps people going that are just shutting down when they are giving up on this RA and on the diagnosis. So I do think that that's really a significant piece of it, is to just keep trying things, just keep doing things, just keep moving, even though it's hard, because it changes so dramatically when you finally get those things out of your system, that you just feel so much better, and it's almost, you can't believe it, or I couldn't. I mean, simple things like driving David's truck. Oh my goodness, turning that wheel. And I thought, I can't stand this. And I just turned harder. I just was like, I'm going to do this. And the dog even was looking at me like, are we going to make it? Are we going to hit the fence? Anyway, you just have to keep doing things. You just have to keep trying. And that's what keeps you going.
Yeah. The other thing that kept me going, like you, I had good people around me, and I just love it when families come in and are supportive. But on nights when I was in too much pain to think, and I couldn't think what the next thing was that day, I would get on the phone with my dad. He would just hang on the phone with me and let me talk. And he wouldn't, I mean, guys sometimes want to fix everything, and so I think it was the hardest thing in the world for him not to be able to fix my condition for me. And to this day, I think that's like some of the most heartbreaking time of his life, was listening to me. But I keep telling him that that was my lifeline, that I didn't need him to fix it. I just needed him to listen. And the important thing that he did was he helped me, because when I was in really high levels of pain, I couldn't really think very well. And I'd say, just help me think of a simple plan for tomorrow. What's the first thing I'm going to do? What's the second thing? And he would always do that with me. And, it made all the difference to be able to go to bed with the plan of, I know what I'm going to do when I get up in the morning, and it was my daddy that, calmed me down and helped me know, what the next step was. And I wasn't always that bad, but I don't know what it would have been like if I didn't have him to lean on. So.
Right. I think that's what's so significant about it, though, Barbara, is that you have somebody who loves you and who will hold you up during that. And I think that's the way we all keep going.
Yeah. And I had good friends and stuff too, but, you know, my dad was my rock.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which,
that's good.
which makes me kind of, I don't know if you'll want to address this with me or not, but I know that David was a real rock for you as well. And a lot of times rheumatoid arthritis gets a lot worse when we're going through things that are very emotional. So I know that that must have been a really hard time when he got diagnosed with cancer, and then for him not to be able to show up to support you and protect you and take care of the farm must have been really hard for him. And I know when you lost him, that must have been utter heartbreak. But did your arthritis get worse because of the emotional part of that? And what did you do to help move through that so that you could experience those emotions in a healthy way and not have it take you down?
Well, you know, the memories of looking back on that many times were that it got worse in there. And now when I look back, I think it was because I was getting anything I could get us to eat. And that didn't come to me at that point, you know, but that's what we were doing to keep going. And so somewhere in there, you know, I found the book and started reading, and so things got a little bit better. But the answer to your question is that David held me up through his whole 4 years of fighting cancer. He has always been the one, you know, that's the way he is. And, you know, we were married, we would have been 49 years this year. So we were married since we were kids. In fact, we started out in Sunday school class, we realized, with his mother teaching us Sunday school. So we've been together a long time. We just didn't know each other until we really got to Baylor and to college. But the question you ask, and the part of it I think that is so important, is that you're praying every day and you're asking for help for David. And I mean, on my knees, asking for help. Is there anything I haven't thought of? Is there anything I haven't done? Is there any place we can go? Is there anything I missed? You know, realizing that God's going to take him when it's his time to go. And in all of that, I think God was holding me up while, you know, I was taking care of him. Then to make sure, you know, that I could keep going, then when David was gone, I am really good at finding the positive in life, and I've always done that. Even what could be a hard, difficult time, I could find something to laugh about. Well, when I lost David, you know, it was the dog, me, and the cows. I had never had a time in my life where I could do anything I wanted, whenever I wanted. I have raised 2 boys. You know, you got all guys in the house, everybody giving instructions, you know. I could do anything I dang well pleased, and I centered on that. I just centered really hard on that. And I just, you know, if I wanted to go to HEB at 7 in the morning, I went, or, you know, or wherever I was going at any time. Or if Bandit and I wanted to walk and, you know, I didn't have a bath yet or just put on clothes that I had from yesterday, we got up and we walked that farm and looked at what was going on and checked fences. And, you know, it was so completely out of the ordinary and different from the life that I had been leading before, that it was fun. It was like an adventure again. So I really think that it is what you make it, and it is God's grace that helps you do that. So I just think that is really important with people. You can center on it's bad, 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 or you can center on life is good. I don't want to miss this day. You know, I want it to be a great day. And I think that's really important. And I got that from you too, Barbara Allen. So I know that I'm not the only one doing that. if you're making a plan while you're hurting the night before with your dad, I know that you know exactly what I'm talking about on that.
Yeah.
So it's a good day if you make it a good day. And by the way, I have a feral cat and a mama with 5 baby kittens. So if you know anybody who needs a baby kitten, be sure and let me know.
All right. It's probably going to help if they live in Texas, though.
Yeah, exactly. It will.
Very good.
But even that. Okay.
Well,
Thanks for letting me do this with you.
Yeah, this has been so delightful, and I really hope that this is able to help a lot of people through their own tough time. I think, to me, it's just so wonderful for you to be sharing what worked for you, because, you know, the stuff that worked for you is what works for most people if they're willing to let themselves have that. You're just doing so many things right, and I'm so happy to know you, and I'm so happy you're doing better.
Oh, me too. Me too. Thank you very much.
Hi, Barbara Allen back again. I hope you have enjoyed this interview and that you have learned something or maybe many things that are going to help you get well. If there is someone that you love or that you care about who has rheumatoid arthritis or any other type of arthritis or even any other type of chronic inflammatory condition, please, please, please share this video with them. It is my dream that we have a collective shift in what we know about inflammation and how to treat it, and that sometime in the near future it's going to be really weird if you have not completely healed yourself after, say, 6 months after being diagnosed with one of these conditions. So again, please share this information and help make this dream a reality.